Hello there, and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor. You might notice that we are at a very special, different venue today, somewhere in outer space, and why that is, I shall explain shortly after a few house cleaning notes. I mean, if you look at the screen behind me, I think you can figure it out what the occasion is. We have an exciting discussion today around uh, books as every Wednesday. Please do take note that from next week, we move to the 12 o'clock hour start time. So 12 o'clock Pacific or Second Life. We're streaming to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Welcome to all our disembodied audience members on these 2D platforms. I will be watching the chat and will incorporate the feedback from Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Book Club Island is always open, and of course, you may find a well-meaning noob stumbling about. And if you are a seasoned Second Lifer, please help them out. Join the group, suggest a show idea, send me an email or an instant message. Also, coming in late June, we're adding an informal Friday 11 o'clock gathering with sort of an open mic vibe that's hosted by authors. But if you're a aspiring author, you can show up. So don't be afraid. If you're a poet, come in, and I'll announce that next week the exact start date. I also put out a reading list on bookshop.org every week. Bookshop.org/shop/Draxtor Reads. I hope AJ can put that in the local chat, and that's the reading list for every week's show. We're going to get started in a minute, but I do have to thank the team who helps to put this show together. Strawberry Linden, who is in charge of the camera and streaming. Brett Linden helps out with security and marketing. Patch Linden, the whole governance team, including the moles. They built this venue. This specific venue was built by Hattie Panacek, and Marianne McCann customizes all this stuff and builds props and all the interactive stuff. Kralos customizes the avatars, and our wonderful Silas Merlin made an avatar from scratch today for one of our guests. And it is time to introduce the guests. On the couch with me is Anne Vandermeer. And Anne,
Oh,
how do you feel in your avatar embodiment? Good to see you.
I feel very cool because my grandson helped with this design. This is
Yes,
his original concept, and then it was improved and expanded on.
it originates from your grandson, and
Grandson who lives in Amsterdam. Yes,
this is amazing. So your avatar travels all over the world. Already. Is he watching this at least
I
in
don't know. I
Amsterdam?
sent him the link. I asked him to, so I don't know if he's watching it or not. But it would be really cool if he was. Hey, Riley.
And Anne, of course, is not only a cartoon, she's also an award-winning editor. And you won so many awards. I'm just gonna throw out a few: Hugo Award, British Fantasy Award, the Riesling Award. I didn't know what that was. And I
Didn't win
also
that award. One of my writers won that award.
oh, so you're an editor.
Editors.
So when you as an editor, when your authors win an award, is that sometimes attributed to you falsely?
No, it's not attributed to me, and it shouldn't be. But I'm always excited and pleased when writers that I publish win awards because that means more people are going to read their work.
So I'm the first one who misattributed you. Well, that's good. I hope I win an award for that.
We'll make one for you.
You and your husband Jeff Vandermeer, the influential blog Boing Boing calls you and your husband a literary power couple. Literally. So you get along with your husband when you work together. You don't. I used to edit my wife's work, and she edits mine sometimes, and it doesn't work too well. We get along very well if we don't work together.
We've been doing this. We've been working together for almost 30 years now. So I think it's a good collaboration. Our projects are a lot of fun. We have differing skills, so
Mhm.
complementary skill sets. It works really great.
The show today is all about avatars, and we have a full room of avatars, and Strawberry will be camming around a little bit, hopefully to get them all in. On the other side of the stage is Eric Desatnik. He's your partner and in the Avatars Inc. project. which we will be talking about. Eric is head of communications for the X Prize Foundation. The X Prize Foundation, they give away millions of dollars, is my understanding, of prize money for people who come up with tech solutions to benefit humanity. It was founded by Peter Diamandis, who should not be a stranger to virtual world enthusiasts. And I believe the board includes James Cameron, Elon Musk, and a lot of other people. Eric, how are you, and how do you feel in your embodiment? You actually have a mask to avoid COVID-19.
Nice. Yeah, first of all, thanks, Drax, and thanks, Anne, for being here with me. This is a really exciting project. Yeah, my avatar, when I was asked what, shape I wanted my avatar to be in, without missing a beat, I wanted to be a robotic Indiana Jones. And here I am. I couldn't have imagined it would work so perfectly. So I feel amazing, very adventurous.
And you have a little steampunk bee on the side. I got that for you. That's a little gift on the house.
I do. It seems to follow me everywhere, so I don't mind it at all. It feels like what's that book series that His Dark Materials? Is that what it's called? Where everyone has like a special pet following them?
Yes. This set me back in my Linden lab. Linden lab gives me this, gives me like a million. It's like the X Prize. I get $1 million Linden dollars from Linden lab every show, and then I can just splurge that on the avatars. That's not true. False news. Okay, so let's stick with the subject here. Avatars Inc. is a book. It's an anthology of 22 stories. They all take place in the 21st century, and what is Avatars Inc? Is it a book? Is it a website? Is it a interactive experience? Also, I want to throw out there, because I learned today that an avatar comes from Hinduism, and it's the concept of a deity that walks the earth. So I guess we're all avatars, but yeah, and what is Avatars Inc?
Avatars Inc. is an anthology, which is a collection of short fiction from multiple writers. So we have 24 stories, and it is a book, but it's an ebook. It's not a physical book. It's also available free online. As far as the interaction is concerned, one of the beautiful things about this anthology is every single story is just lavishly illustrated by a different artist. So if you go online to avatars.inc, you can see all the stories, you can engage with them, and you can take a look at the beautiful artwork, and you can download a free ebook.
Mm-hmm. And what I'm doing actually right now, and I don't know if we see this, folks in the room in Second Life can bring up the website. I just brought it up on the billboard behind me. There's a little introduction video, and then it opens up to a page that has all the stories that appear in the anthology that you can read, and you put an amazing lineup in there, and Eric, and I would like to know, how does this work? I mean, do you have like a top list of people who you want in there, and then, I don't know, 40% decline? Or is it maybe just 200% say yes, and then you have to say, well, we got to weed them out?
So let me chime in on that. So every anthology works differently, and Nan could speak more to that. But for Avatars Inc., we knew diversity was important, as is probably the case in any anthology, but we wanted to make sure that we weren't just getting a singular sort of vision of the future, that we wanted to get sort of multiple writers from all around the world who bring different perspective to how avatars might be used in the future. So we start with creating a wish list. I have folks that I've worked with before on previous X Prize anthologies, or X Prize actually has a science fiction advisory council that has 120 some amazing writers. Obviously, Anne knows everyone and has worked with everyone. So we start the really, at least how I found it, is that everyone is very enthusiastic when we reach out to them. The people that do say no are saying no because of unavailability. You know, they don't have the time to do pre-existing commitments. But for the most part, we get a pretty high response rate. We give them plenty of time. We do give them sort of the prompt to adhere to, but beyond that, they do have quite a lot of freedom and flexibility to take it whichever direction they'd like, which is probably of interest to the writers.
Right, and they do have a lot of freedom, and you can tell. I mean, I see certain themes in there that I feel are maybe dominating in a good way. So actually, we have the website up now, so I'm gonna just scroll through here. The themes that I found are dominating is work and family. For whatever reason, I would like Anne to comment on that. If you have that same impression, I mean, people send out their avatars to do work that is difficult, into work situations that are inaccessible for human beings. And I want to say that in almost all stories, I think all of them, the avatar is kind of a robot that is remotely controlled. So I found that extremely refreshing, actually, that there is not a lot of, as a virtual reality, virtual world enthusiast, it's not a lot of virtual world people sitting at home and playing around with people on the screen. They're actually controlling physical beings that are oftentimes on completely opposite ends of the world. And what would you say is the theme there? Is that something that came out naturally, or was that something that you hoped would come in?
It really goes beyond the human beings that are controlling the avatars. They're doing more than that. What they're doing is they're experiencing what the avatars are experiencing, and they're doing it in real time. So that's what makes this whole project so much fun. I loved looking at all the different ways that the writers were exploring how they could see avatars being used in the future. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I saw, you mentioned work and family. Well, let me expand on that. Yes, a lot of the avatars were being used for work situations that could be dangerous. In addition to that, what I saw mostly in all the stories is human beings trying to make connections with other human beings, using avatars for that purpose. So whether it was in a work situation or whether it is reaching across the planet to be with a family member, it's still all about human communication. So that's what I saw in every single story.
No, and thank you, Anne, because I didn't want to suggest that this is simply sort of a collection of stories where somebody has sort of an AR-controlled robot and goes into a nuclear site and does a job. You're absolutely right. What I found interesting, because I explored this on the virtual world and with my documentaries, the Our Digital Selves stuff, and that stuff, how people interact and form communities and real relationships through the screen to other human beings. But the cool thing about this anthology is that the folks here have access to these robots. In the case of Lisa S.L. Huang's story, there is a robot sent to Hong Kong to participate in a demonstration against the government, controlled by the granddaughter, who connects not only with the local politics but also with her family. So it's yeah.
And the granddaughter is actually surprised by what the grandmother is accomplishing and doing, which I found to be quite fascinating, because oftentimes we don't think about that. We don't think about what the older generation is still out there doing. And because in many cases, older people are invisible in our lifestyle, it's really amazing what they can accomplish. And that's one of the beautiful things about that particular story, Add Oil.
If I can add,
go ahead, Eric.
If I can add one thing, one interesting thing to point out, two quick things. One is the reason that X Prize decided to sort of create such an anthology is because in real life, we have a multi-million-dollar competition where teams are actually developing robotic avatar systems. So we have 77 teams from around the world who are doing just that. So one of the purposes of this anthology is to sort of give insight to the public on how these avatars might impact our lives in the future, whether it's our personal lives, our work lives, etc. So that's sort of the context here. And I wanted to also add that, that per Anne's point, avatars are sort of, as you mentioned, the term avatar goes back millennia and has sort of religious roots, and cut to the 20th century, and avatars sort of represent our digital extensions of ourselves, such as in Second Life, to James Cameron's version of avatars, which are sort of big blue aliens that are operated by humans. This is, imagine you're wherever you are in the world and you put on an advanced headset and haptic gloves and whatever. You are controlling a version of yourself in the physical world anywhere, and you are manipulating objects and you are interacting with the environment and other people as if you are there. It's really your presence that is extended to elsewhere in real time, which is phenomenal. So the writers got to explore that in all their stories.
Now that's what I found so not refreshing, but also exciting, because in Second Life or virtual worlds in general have accomplished a lot in terms of bringing people together, people with mobility issues, and we talk a lot here about also, like Anne was saying, older folks are often invisible. Certainly not in Second Life. They participate here via their avatar. That makes it easier because of the embodiment that they choose. Speaking of older folks, if folks in World want to bring up the story Neurodancer, it's another story that stood out for me. I mean, they're all really exceptional, but Neurodancer by Tom Swederlich, hope I pronounced that correctly, is about a patient with dementia, and his daughter, or is it his granddaughter? I forget. Is working with the doctors on a method to have him get his memories back by controlling a physical avatar in a sort of set, in a kind of a movie set that depicts his former life. And there's an incredible scene in there where the avatar interacts with his real life or physical self in the bed, lying there in the hospital bed. I mean, it's really powerful stuff. So that's Neurodancer by Tom Swederlich. If you click on the left on the website behind me, you can bring up these stories. And this is something that we can probably talk for hours about. Maybe you want to come back for that, but I'm always curious what the role of an editor is in relationship to the authors. Eric said earlier, the authors had time. I mean, what does that mean? If you tell an artist you have time, I think that is maybe not a good strategy, because they go like, "Oh, cool, I have time." Do you have to crack the whip a lot, or what is your role specifically now with this project?
Well, it is a little bit like herding cats, but extremely beautiful and creative cats. I live with a writer, so I know what they deal with. But and I love working with writers, but sometimes they are quite a challenge. I will say that. I find my job as an editor to be cheerleader, the person that is getting the work out there. I stand in between the writer and the reading audience, and what I feel like my job is to help the writer find the best that they can do in their work and present that to as large of an audience as I possibly can. Also, on the other end, I have a responsibility to the reading audience as well. And I want to give them not only what they want to read, but what they don't yet know that they want to read. And so I find that to be a wonderful challenge that I try to live up to every day, is bringing different things to readers that they don't yet realize until they see it. Oh my gosh, how wonderful this is when they finally do. Mm-hmm. That's my job as an editor.
Do writers sometimes perceive that as you stepping into their field and making things maybe too, I don't know, commercial? Streamlining it?
That's never happened with me. I haven't ever had anyone say that with me, because to me, whenever I'm dealing with a text, when I'm looking at a story, or a novel or a novella, I approach it as if it's a blind date, okay? Even if it's a writer I've been working with for a long time, every single story is its own unique thing, and I approach it like it's a blind date. And what I want is I want to absolutely fall in love with the story. That's what I want. And I want it to be true love, not just lust. Because I know that if I'm acquiring a story for publication, I'm going to have to live with that story for a very long time, which is, a very strong commitment. So I trust the writer to know what's best for them with the story in the final analysis. So if we have a back and forth into this and that, I'm always going to leave it to the writer to make the final decision on edits and things like that. I'm not a heavy-handed editor. I don't make a whole lot of changes. I usually just work in a manner of questions, asking the writer, well, why did you do this? Or maybe we need something here, or something along those lines, as opposed to crossing things out and rewriting stuff.
And that's often enough. I mean, if you just bounce it off somebody else's idea, I mean, we do that all the time in the various teams that I'm involved with. And sometimes it's just like you bounce it off somebody else, and then the ideas come into your head, or the knot unties itself in your own head just by throwing it to another person.
And sometimes writers don't really see what it is that they're doing that's the best. They might see, I need to go in this direction, when they really need to be going in another direction. And sometimes it's just a matter of showing it to them, and they see it and they can grab onto it.
It's interesting. I just want to incorporate a few chats here from YouTube. Hexapoda says, the body often gets older faster than the mind. Many old in SL are often seen as young and creative. So this is a great point that we were making here too, because of the chosen embodiment, specifically in virtual worlds, but also in many of these stories, even in the physical sense of the robot. This is opening these the doors. And I wanted to point out Pat Cadigan's story, who's also in this anthology. The story is The Final Performance of the Amazing Ralphie. It's a great title. It's a great story. And while I'm saying this, I read in the chat that Elfbiter, who's in the audience, says, check Pat Cadigan's Sinners and Mind Players. So that was a little bit of interesting synchronicity here. And yeah, you can click again here on the screen in the back, and the stories comes up. They will ask for your email. You can give them your email to X Prize, and then they will send you a million emails, right, Eric?
Of course not.
But Eric, seriously, what is very interesting, and thank you for contextualizing this, that there is actually an effort in the physical world to build avatars. Is there? I mean, this is something that is, I think, pretty well known, that a lot of engineers are very much influenced by imaginative or speculative writing. Is that sort of also sort of a pipeline that through these stories, people who work on these projects get infused with new ideas?
Absolutely, and I 100% agree that science fiction is inspired by real world innovation, and vice versa, that real world innovation is inspired by science fiction. X Prize certainly has been inspired by science fiction. We actually had a $10 million competition to develop a tricorder-like device from, as people know, from the Star Trek universe. But it goes both ways. So hopefully, per your point,
well, did that work? Where's that tricorder?
It did. So there's obviously, a lengthy process, especially when you're talking about, FDA approvals and stuff. But it's a team created a handheld device that at home you can diagnose a number of health conditions, vital signs. It really inspired by Star Trek, and so one day soon we hope that will be more ubiquitous. But per your point, we hope that sort of the engineers not only working on this competition, but anyone out there sort of reads this and is inspired to enter a new field or inspired by new functionalities that the writers imagine for their stories that can be incorporated into real life avatars. One other thing I want to point out, which is like sort of pulling in the backdrop of all of our lives right now, is that we actually started down this Avatars Inc. project back like November or something of last year. So completely pre-COVID times. Now that we're in this world that we're in right now, and everyone is thinking about and talking about how do we, use telepresence technologies for all kinds of things. Like, it's pretty eerie that there's such a timeliness and relevance to these stories now.
Yeah, and that is a very good point. I mean, here in the Second Life community, and I've pointed this out many times, and it's wonderful when I'm onboarding authors here for this project and others. We have a weekly show, and we're booked till including January 2021 now. And authors who are coming in here, they unanimously say, "Wow, this is so cool! I'm so tired of being on Zoom all day or with these meetings." So while we don't have physical replicas of ourselves that we can puppeteer through the physical world, we have something. We have sort of the closest thing. I see on the stream right now in the back the story, the Ulgrib case by Jeffrey Ford, is up on the screen, which is another really awesome story where the main protagonist has, I guess, a virtual world built into her brain, and when she's tired of working on criminal cases, she just sort of touches her neck, and then she has a little bit of a dose of escape into that virtual world. This is a story by Jeffrey Ford, and we're at the halfway point of the show already, which is a good point to reveal that in our audience we have uh, a lot of speculative fiction royalty actually in avatar form sitting around. So I'm going to start introducing them. But first, if you're just tuning in, this is the Second Life Book Club. Today's special guests Anne Vandermeer and Eric Desatnik from the Avatars Inc. project. Please take note that from next Wednesday onward, we're doing this at 12 o'clock Pacific time, 12 o'clock Second Life time. Now, we have people here in our midst that are part of this project. We have Lisa Huang, SL Huang. Where is she? Lisa, are you here? Where is Lisa sitting? Let's see. Lisa is right here in
I'm
the
here.
back.
I just stood up, so I don't know how to wave at everybody, but hello.
Lisa is here in the back on the other side. We have Kelly Robson. Kelly Robson, I think, is easy to identify. She came with a whole bunch of legs.
Yeah.
Hi, Kelly.
I'm the vision obstruction. Hello.
I have to give Strawberry a little bit of time to cam around, because behind Kelly is another octopus just came in, and it is actually Julie Novakova coming to us from the Czech Republic. And I don't know if she can hear us. She just rezzed in. It's an octopus jumping around in the back there. On the other side of the room, we have Paul McCauley. Now, where is Paul? Hello, Paul.
Let me see. Right.
Paul is right here in front of a floating. Behind you is a wonderful white robot. You, of course, Paul, have a fishbowl as a head. How come? How come you chose this embodiment?
It's an arcane reference to a character named Unlikely Worlds books. That's all I'll say.
Okay, so we have to read these books. You're saying
you have to read Into Everywhere on what's good.
Thank you, Paul, because I actually forgot to remind people what we're doing here. It's in my run sheet. We need to purchase books, folks, if we want authors to survive and thrive. If we want this art to continue here at the Book Club, this is, if I have any secret agenda, this is my one agenda. Support this by going out there and buying books. And to that end, I'm putting the bookshop.org/shop/Draxtor Reads. Maybe AJ can put that in the chat, the link. This is the reading list. And we will end today's show also, again, talking about the book that you guys are reading. And maybe you have a recommendation. Also in the in the audience is Jeffrey Ford, and I see the camera is now going to Jeffrey Ford. Hello, Jeffrey. How are you?
I'm doing good. How's it going there?
Good. Jeffrey is one of the authors that I did not know, that I discovered through this Avatars Inc. anthology, and now I'm compulsively ordered a lot of his books. Did I do the right thing, Anne?
Yes, you
Is an
did.
anthology also something where I can discover? This is a softball question I'm throwing at you. Is it maybe the way to discover new authors, Anne?
Yes, please. I mean, these stories are a great introduction to what these writers are doing, and they all have other work out there. And I definitely want to say, please go out and check their other books, their other stories, and support them by buying them. That would be awesome, because not only are you helping the writers to have the time and the space to write more things, but you're helping the entire book publishing industry. And it's good for you too, because you're going to love these things. You're just going to love them.
But why not just be in virtual reality with your avatar all day, Anne?
As long as you can read books.
Good. Okay, that's the answer I was looking for. And lastly, we have Nino Kipri. Nino Kipri, they are in the green chair on the other side, right in front, right behind Kelly, actually.
Hi,
Nino
everyone.
Kipri. Hello, Nino. How are you?
I'm doing well. How's everybody else doing?
Very good. I enjoyed onboarding you guys and spending time, and sometimes it goes overtime. I schedule it tightly, and then people don't want to leave. So that's that's actually wonderful. Also, Intrapramit is in the back there. Intrapramit from
Hi.
coming to us
Hi,
from, where are
everyone.
you? In Calcutta?
Yes, I'm in Kolkata. It's dinner time for me. Night time.
Thank you so much. The time zone is the only issue that has not been resolved by virtual worlds.
It's no problem at all. I mean, it's pretty easy to eat while sitting here and watching you guys talk.
Now, I have one question for each of you guys. Let's start with Lisa here. Now, your story, Add Oil, is about a woman who visits her family in Hong Kong, and via her avatar goes on a protest with her grandmother. When you came up with this story, did you feel you had? I wonder, did you feel you had enough time or too little time? What is the time that is perfect for you to write a story like this? Because
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
That's a really interesting question, and I think this varies a lot by author. I tend to write short stories very fast, as long as I have an idea. And I knew I wanted to do something about Hong Kong because this had been my newsfeed for months, and my family is from Hong Kong, and I was I just had a lot of emotions about it all the time, and was feeling very helpless and wanted to write about trying to sort of share these emotions with people. I was on deadline for a novel at the exact same time we were doing the Avatar stuff, so I had things scheduled very closely. And I knew I'm a fast writer on short stories, and this is something that as a writer you get to know your speed at things. It's part of the job, and being a professional writer. And so I had a deadline for a book, I think like 3 days before the deadline for Avatars Inc. So I finished the book, and then I was like, okay, now I have like a day to write this story. And I did, and I revised it. I sent it to Anne on totally time, and fortunately, Anne loved what I did, and I was very pleased with how the story came out. But this is very normal for my process, that I write a story all at once. So that's sort of how I plan things. As long as I have had the idea percolating in my head, it all comes out onto the page in one go for me. But that's not all authors. Like, that's very particular to my process.
It fascinates me because I come from daily radio way back in the day, and it suited me to churn out a story fast, and then you're sometimes a little bit frustrated that it wasn't perfect, although people liked it, but in your head it could have been better. But then you get the chance to do it again, right? I mean, if you get more opportunities to write short stuff, and so you don't have to live Well, I guess authors do have to live with their short stories too, while a radio producer doesn't have to live for years with a reportage that ran on NPR's Morning Edition. I mean,
I think I am extremely proud of my short fiction, and I think it's some of my best work. I don't think my shorts suffer at all for writing them fast. It just happens to be my process. And in fact, like, this is all of my short stories. I think there are very few of my short stories I wrote in more than a day. And I think my best ones are the ones that come out all at once. In fact, because it means that there's some emotional buildup that's happened for me. So it's not slapdashing it. This is the way I work with short fiction. But I know authors who like outline and write for 6 months on a short. And what's fascinating about authors is we all have extremely different writing processes, and it's great. It's a rich tapestry of the world.
Let's throw it to Paul. Actually, I want to say that Julie Novakova has told us that her octopus is frozen, so we'll involve her with questions a little bit later. I want to throw it to Paul. Paul's story in the anthology is Robot and Girl with Flowers, and this is a question I actually want to ask everyone, but I'm gonna throw it to you. How many ideas do you have ideas in the drawer, or do you come up with a fresh idea, or do you repurpose ideas when Anne comes to you and says, you know what, we have this Avatar anthology? How is that process? Is there maybe 3-4 ideas that you throw in the garbage before you come up with the good one, or is there maybe something in the drawer that was discarded on another project that you can use right away?
Well, this came out of just thinking about the brief for the book. It's not a repurposed idea or something I've got in storage. In fact, I've got very few ideas in storage because I tend to use them in stuff. So I always need to keep. And this one was just thinking about somebody a bit like myself, oldish guy, older than me, bedridden, living in New Zealand, and gets invited to a kind of retrospective exhibition photographs.
In his old stomping grounds,
his old town, which is my old stomping ground, so you can see.
Okay.
So that sort of came out from the idea of what happens if you go back to where you haven't been for a very long time, but also that experience that you have as a guest of an official guest of an event, and you go on walkabout, which happens to Paul.
Paul is breaking up for me a little bit.
Second Life, that would be weird.
Say the last part again, please. You're
I haven't gone walkabout in second. I haven't gone walkabout in Second Life, so that would be a bit weird. But I way and you know how I was. But that was kind of the idea that he's suddenly got this freedom to roam around the grounds, the area where he was a kid who could run around freely. He's an old guy, and suddenly he's been given this body and this ability to do it again. So it's a kind of a nostalgic take. It's also a reference to a Brian Aldiss story. Get this right: girl and robot with flames. It's about.
Let me ask real quick: do people in the room hear Paul? Paul, make sure that you have your speak button pressed also in World. Somebody said that they can't hear. Oh, people can't hear Paul. Yeah, you have to press the speak button in SL.
Oh, hang on.
Press that on the bottom there, where it says speak.
Chat, you mean?
No, there's a microphone symbol on the bottom in Second Life. On the bottom of your screen.
I think we've got a little
next to speak.
Yeah, but I can't see either of that because you know what? I've got a Mac and do things.
In the Second Life window on the bottom, there's a speaker symbol. I let you look for it. In the meantime, Julie is mentioning here in text. Julie's story.
Everybody hearing me now? Is that working?
Let's see here. Okay. Yes, you're live in SL. Perfect.
Okay.
So you were saying that you were actually looking around in SL, which is funny because a lot of people that are unfamiliar with it, they do explore. And I was thinking of your story, and we're like, okay, maybe you get sucked into SL to recreate your own stomping grounds. I mean, that is what a lot of people do. When I lived in America, I was in SL actually in an alpine group that recreated sort of an alpine village because I was homesick. And now that I'm quarantined in Germany, I hang out at the beach in SL. So
So
without a robot.
it's a big temptation to go back to where you came from. And it's possible for me to. It was possible for me to do that. Of course, I can't do that now because of coronavirus and the lockdown in the UK. So it kind of has an extra layer to the story that's added retrospectively.
So it is in your story. It is actually not necessarily. Well, I mean, the artist who goes back, he's just there to address at an award ceremony, I suppose, and then it's a PR opportunity. But you're suggesting that going back might not be a good thing.
Oh, I think he thinks it's a good thing. I mean, it's a freeing thing. It's a memory thing. As you were talking about the person who's being prompted by memories of their old place,
right?
A bit better than they were. This is the same kind of idea, really, that we all do. When you go back, it prompts all kinds of memory and body responses.
Yeah.
Kind of the interesting thing, if you're in a different body, do you get the same response? If your body's like, in his case, he's in New Zealand and he's Australia, you're getting the same response.
In case
if you're actually there.
In case Paul is broken up for the others as well, what I heard you say is that and that is in fact very interesting. If when we get the opportunity to have a different body, does it retain or trigger the same emotional memories as if we're there for real or in the physical world? We're 20 minutes before the end of the show. We have to do this like 3 hours. So Julie, who is the octopus, I don't know if she crashed out of SL, but her story, A Mountain to Climb, is a really cool story about a space elevator. And it's seemingly about someone sabotaging that space elevator via this avatar. It's awesome story. Many people are commenting in the chat that they will check out this anthology. Again, it's avatars.inc, and you can get a physical copy. Is that right? Can you can order a physical copy on Amazon or Eric?
Not physical copies, but you can download a free ebook or Kindle version or whatever via avatars.inc.
Then I'm the only one who I have a physical copy.
Exactly. You have a
special.
VIP version.
Ooh. I want to bring in Nino. Nino, can you hear us? Let's see here. Nino also has an older MacBook. And I think Nino.
I'm here.
Nino is here.
I'm here. Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes,
I hope that
awesome.
can people indicate in SL if they hear Nino? Nino, how many stories did you throw in the trash before you came up with the story at the end of A Most Perfect Day?
Only one, actually, which is better than I usually do when I'm trying to write to somebody else's like prompt or something like that.
Nino, you have to also press the speak button in SL. People can't hear you.
It is pressed.
I could hear it.
People in SL can't hear you. I see your speak is not engaged.
Oh, is it? I thought it was.
You should see
I
like
turn it
these.
all the way up?
Yeah, see these waves coming out over your head. Nino's story, while he's fiddling with the controls, is very, very cool. It's about and this is kind of apropos SL in a weird way. It's about a sex worker that turns into a crime scene cleaner. And I was thinking like, oh, interesting, an avatar who does sex work. That is very reminiscent of a specific subculture in Second Life. It's an awesome story, and it's essentially about a job interview that the avatar has to perform. Can people hear Nino now? Nino, let's give us a little sound in SL.
Here I am. I don't know. Oh, maybe. Hold on. Sorry, my machine is breaking down again, unfortunately. I swear I ordered a new laptop, but we'll see if it ever gets here. unfortunately.
No problem. Let me throw it to Jeffrey. Jeffrey, your story, the olive grip case. How would you describe what's that story about?
Well, when you described it before, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, when you described it before, you got it a little wrong, but it's the when the woman touches her neck, that puts her consciousness into the avatar. And what the avatar does, I don't know, I just came up with this idea because I think people work too much
Yes.
and everybody's busy and you can't get time off and all this. So you get an avatar and you go into the avatar and then you can go on vacation.
No,
So
that's yeah. See, but that's
so she
exactly yeah.
goes.
Mhm.
She wants to. She has this desire to go back to nature because the world is kind of screwed up and it's not close to her at all. And so she wants to get out in the country and one of the things that she just wants to do it's one of the cheaper uh, vacation programs you can get with the avatar. And the avatar, what it does is it just runs. It runs through nature, like vast distances, up and down mountains and everything. And I wanted to do that one because I haven't run in like I'm 65, gonna be 65 this year. I don't think I've run for the last 15 years. So so
We have to get
I
you a
wanted.
trend. We can run here in Second Life. We're gonna go. We're
That's
gonna
right.
go some running later in the forest. But see, that's
That's
interesting
that's
because
my
you're
kind of running.
I saw your story, and I knew there was the physical, let's call it robot or avatar involved here. But when I summarized it, and now as I was summarizing here for the show, I see everything through the lens of Second Life because that's actually what people do here. So
Yeah,
when I remembered the story as I read it, I retained was the part that I can switch off and go into this world anytime, which I sometimes do when I write stuff. I have
right.
Second Life open on a window where I'm actually looking at a forest.
Right. This
Yeah.
one takes place in the same world, but then there's a mystery involved in it, and there's
In a
some
conspiracy.
conspiracy. Yeah, a deep conspiracy.
It's very deep.
So gets a little bloody too at times, but there's some pretty stuff too. There's pretty is in there too. There's some pretty stuff.
So Nino, I think your voice is fixed. Nino, can you hear us in SL? And can people hear Nino in SL?
Okay, let's try this again. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. People in SL, please respond. No, they
No.
can't hear you.
Maybe
Bummer.
this is probably just because my computer is very sad and very old and
Very sad computer, Nino is saying here on our chat. So the Facebook and the YouTube people can hear us. So we'll give it another try. Oh, Stella says yes, we can hear you. Now we can no. So it is a little bit choppy, but basically Nino was saying that you actually chose that story. You didn't have to discard that many stories. I think it was only 2, while usually you throw away 10 ideas. Is that what you were saying? No.
well, I only threw away one idea just because I couldn't make it work, and then I got inspired by a very different story that I heard actually on a podcast about a crime scene cleaner that had formerly been a sex worker, and I just thought that was so interesting and just kind of fit with the vibe of the anthology and the kind of story that I wanted to write so much better than what I had been. I don't know, what was it?
This is really interesting. So that's actually what happened in real life.
Yeah, no, this is a very real woman. Her name's Sandra Parkhurst, I believe, and it was she was profiled and interviewed in an episode of the Criminal Podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts.
That's how you guys get your ideas.
I'm definitely a little magpie, and I just kind of scoop up anything shiny or interesting and turn it into a story.
I forgot to continue here with Julie Novakova, who is also unfortunately no longer with us in her avatar embodiment. Julie is saying on the stream, let me scroll through here. We have a lot of comments. Oh yeah, we covered that with the space elevator. Now, Kelly is still with us here. Kelly, your story. I read. I mean, you were on the show just last. Was it last week? Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was last week. We had a great time.
We had a great time, and this story, Two Watersheds, is again weirdly very positive, very optimistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's with the
Yeah, no, it
optimism?
is. Well, I'm glad because I'm glad that you noticed the optimism this time. Yeah, well, I used to work for environmental consultants, and listen, if you do that work, you have to believe. Otherwise, you can't, you can't have a doom and gloom feeling about the future of humanity because otherwise your work is meaningless. So
Right.
yeah, my main character in the story Two Watersheds is an environmental consultant, and she lives in my old hometown in Alberta outside of Jasper Park, and she's doing work on the river there, which has been badly damaged by having its flow redirected into another river system. So yeah, that's my story.
And is Intrapromit still with us? Intrapromit sitting here in the back.
Yes,
Intrapromit.
I'm still here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Can people hear Intrapromit in Second Life as well? Just give us a yes or no. And Intrapromit, your story is Incarnate. What is that story about? I mean, that is actually, I say this about every story that's the greatest, but they're all really good. This is about this is a story that really resonated with me deeply. I've lived abroad away from family. Then we came back to help out with older relatives. And in your story, there's somebody who was actually exiled involuntarily, as I understand, to Canada, and then this person checks in with the family in Calcutta via an avatar and hangs out
Yeah.
with their family. I mean, it's powerful.
Thank you. So yeah, she's a political refugee, and so she's not actually exiled. She leaves and kind of applies for political refugee status in Canada because of the threats she faces in India. So I mean, it's
With the
pretty.
recurrence of nationalism, basically,
Yes, yeah.
you
So
wrote a
it's
documentary. I see. Okay.
yeah, exactly. It's very clear where the inspiration is coming from, if you call it that. It's well, when I was writing the story, the protest, the nationwide protest that happened in India, hadn't fully begun. It was only kind of isolated. It hadn't become this massive movement that we saw towards the end of 2019.
Right.
But but we were seeing protests against the fascism of the government, against the violence of the government, and that was a first. We hadn't seen that in the entire time this current government has been in power, and we were all kind of, well, the progressives were all hoping that it would happen, and it just didn't. And then, end of 2019, finally started happening because of a series of violent incidents where thugs and police attacked various campuses and attacked Muslim students, and so I was very much looking at the condition of the country when I wrote the story, and when I first talked to Anne about the story, it was just going to be a student coming back home like I did. I was a student, was an immigrant. I went to the U.S. and Canada to study. I lived in Canada for a bit, so I'm very much familiar with missing home on both sides of the planet, because you make a home on both sides. And then when we talked about it, I don't know why the idea changed, but then maybe it was once I started writing that it just kind of. I think people are saying people can't hear me.
Yeah, some people can't hear you in SL. People on the stream, let me just clarify that people on Facebook and YouTube, they can hear you. That's why we're using the Discord. But some people
Okay.
say that they can hear you okay, but faintly.
I
Well,
can putting up the volume on my voice SL. Is it any better now?
I could hear him good.
Yeah, but we're hearing him in Discord. It's fine,
Oh.
Intrapramit. Carry on because we're running up against the clock, and I do want to. We have a little special thing here. We have actually an outdoors theater. Some of the authors could not come into Second Life, but they sent special unlisted videos that are only for us to watch. So Indra Pramit was talking about, and I'm just going to throw it to you, was talking about a real political issue here. Did you get a lot of submissions with a political bent, or was he the only one in that anthology, or is it in the subtext of the others? Anne, did we lose Anne?
I think we lost Anne.
I
Sorry,
think we
no,
lost her.
I'm sorry. I put
But
myself on mute because I was trying to avoid feedback. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? You should be able to hear me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so sorry. What I said is that really everything is political. You can find political messages in every single story. They may not be as obvious in the forefront, but it's always there. And Intra's story, of course, is very much in the forefront because you're talking about a person who has been banned from their home country, but they still want to be able to interact with their family, and not just via Skype or Zoom or something like that, but they want to
Or
actually
Second Life. Yeah, go ahead.
or in Second Life, they want to be in the same physical space.
Mhm.
And so even though there's that political overtone to that story, it still goes back to the human connection, being
Right.
able to reach out and touch somebody that you love.
I'm very glad that you said everything is political, because that's what I literally say at least 10 times a day. And then people get upset. Let's not talk about politics. Okay, let's not get into that, because then we're going to be here 2 hours from now with a very good conversation, I'm sure. We are pushing up against the clock. Now, I brought in another teleporter, folks, and this is going to be very cool. Look at this. Do you see this teleporter appearing magically out of nowhere? Now, if you go into this teleporter, then you will come out outside in a outdoor theater, and I will meet you there, and we will watch a few videos by actually Julie Novakova, but also by Juliana Baggett and by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and they sent us little videos. So hop into the teleporter, and I will meet you outside in the outdoors theater. In the meantime, as the big transition happens, the big migration into the great outdoors, where we don't even need any oxygen mask or anything. Let me just remind folks that you are watching the Second Life Book Club, and we are moving to the 12 o'clock hour come next week. Next week will be a panel on literary fiction with the folks from Influx Press, so a small outlet in the UK, putting out absolutely amazing stuff. And oh, folks ended up downstairs, they're telling me. Well, let me teleport them back manually, and maybe folks can help out. Let me bring in people who are nearby and bring them to me. So next week will be at the 12 o'clock hour, and we will do the same rundown, meaning we have an hour stream, and then we have about 30 minutes of fan Q&A. Now, I see on the stream we can already see the website. While people are jumping in, let me bring up what Juliana Baggett sent me. Juliana is one of the authors featured in the anthology, and Juliana sent this video here. Let's see if we can watch this and if we can hear it.
Hi, I'm Juliana Baggett. I'm going to be reading
Here it
from
is.
book, and the story is called Banding. I volunteered for this deployment, banding millipedes
Can we
along
hear
the
Juliana
Plastic
Baggett?
coast. When you leave your husband, as I have, you
She's
need to be
coming in.
alone for a while. And now I'm one of a crew of 50. We can spread out across the shoreline with our nets. I'm the most distant point, so far from the others that their voices are lost in the surf. I let down my nets, trawling the shallow waves between bottles, swirling bags, buckets, car seats. The wide gulf, its scrim bobbing with pollution, is on my right. On my left, the beach, which was once a Florida vacation spot, now cluttered with detritus. Sometimes I have to navigate around the bigger things, engine parts, rusty appliances, an elaborate hamster cage. By the time of our deployment, the millipedes had grown webbed claws. They are engineered species that's gone rogue. I search for the telltale ripples of their undulation and splayed claws spinning in unison, paddling like oarsmen. The webbing makes sense as they have adapted to marine life, from bottom feeders to swimmers, but the newly evolved claws were deeply disturbing to both etymological engineering and epidemiology communities. What do they need them for? Pandemic that wiped out the local human population. That's why the avatars have been brought in. Humans can't chance it. And really, we only have ourselves to blame. The millipedes were designed to digest plastic, turning it into biodegradable feces. They were specifically developed for adaptability and quick reproduction. The cause was noble, to let them loose and have them eat our plastic waste. It didn't go well. There was a design flaw in the skin of their sternites, too permeable. I can relate. In my current state, I feel too permeable. So there's more to my story. It's in here. Obviously, there are also more stories, as you all know. You know, you're pretty aware of the book, or you wouldn't be here. Okay, anyway, that's it. I'm Juliana Baggett. If you have any other questions for me or anything, you can always hit me up at my website, julianabaggett.com, and the questions go to me. And otherwise, I hope you guys are well, and I hope, you know, you're surviving. Okay, thanks. Hi, I'm Juliana Baggett. I'm going to be reading from,
And I think that was
and the
that
story
does
is
it for
called
the video,
Banding.
Juliana Baggett.
I
I don't know if
volunteered
people
for
are with
this
me. The
deployment,
teleporting
banding
system
millipedes
failed
along
us.
the
Oh, there's
Plastic
almost
coast.
everybody's down
When you
here.
leave your
Wonderful.
husband, as I have, you need to be alone for a
Wonderful.
while.
Okay, so
And
I'm
now
going to
I'm one
put
of a
the
crew
next
of
video
50.
up.
We can spread out
Give me
across
1
the
second
shoreline
here.
with our nets. I'm the
Actually,
most
I think
distant
we
point,
might have
so
to
far from the others
end
that
the
their
stream
voices
for
are lost in the
today.
surf.
But the in-world audience can stick with us, of course, because we're starting the informal half hour. So let me just wrap up the streaming show, and then we're going to go to the fun part. Oops, there is somebody standing on me. Maybe I should sit somewhere else. Okay, is the camera on me? Thank you for watching. This was the Second Life Book Club every Wednesday. Please note the new time. The new time is 12 o'clock. Thank you very much, Anne Vandermeer. Thank you very much, Eric Desatnik, and all the wonderful authors. You can stick around. We're doing another 25 minutes of informal talk. Be sure to check out the reading list at bookshop.org/shop/Draxtor Reads. We're not sponsored by bookshop.org. I really like their business model. That's all there is to it. They give a lot of their revenue to local events and local stores. Thanks again to my team: Strawberry, Brett, Marianne, Patch, Kralo, Silas Merlin for the Anne avatar. See you all next Wednesday at 12 o'clock SLT right here at the Second Life Book Club.